4 finalists have been identified for the position of Vice President of Student Services at Glendale Community College. During the Candidates Forum of April 25, 2018, 9 pre-established questions were presented to each finalist.
What work have you done with state-identified disproportionately impacted student populations? And how will you help GCC to work towards true student equity?
Well, first, if I could just thank everyone for taking their time to come out this afternoon to the forum. As mentioned, my name is DrShalamonDuke. Closer, okay. As mentioned, my name is DrShalamonDuke, and have been working in the community colleges now for about 17 years. Started my career as a classified staff member at Maricosta College, and from there have been a dean ever since in the student services, and have been interim vice president of student services a couple of times as well. But to answer the question specifically about the type of work that I've been doing to help disproportionately impacted students. All of my career has been working with students with disabilities. And even before I came to the community colleges, the lion's share of my work with the regional centers in the Department of Rehabilitation has been working with all types of individuals with varying disabilities. About 14 years ago, I attended the ACA leadership training and met for the first time 4 individuals who have become lifelong friends. And I say that because it's important, because if I hadn't attended that leadership training, I wouldn't have met these individuals in the same capacity, and I don't think I would have the relationship I have with them. But throughout our conversations, we decided to form an organization called AMEND, and that stands for the African American Male Education Network and Development Organization. And over the years, our primary goal was to offer mentor opportunities and scholarships for students in the community colleges, primarily African American students and Hispanic students. And that's exactly what we have been doing for the past maybe 7 or 8 years in terms of scholarships, but in terms of conferences, we just finished our 12th conference. This past year, we awarded about $70,000 in scholarships to students across the state who were in community colleges, and in fact, at our last board meeting, we just decided that we feel it's important that students get an experience outside of the country as well. So we decided to sponsor 15 of our mentees and go on to Ethiopia for 10 days. So that's what I've been doing in regards to working with disproportionately impacted students. Also, I've worked with formerly incarcerated students. All of my life, I've experienced students in the foster care, in a foster care system. My mother was a foster care parent since I can remember. So that's a natural match for me as well, because I've been in that environment, and I've seen foster children come to our home crying because they were taken from their sister or taken from their home. So that's the work I enjoy doing, is working with those particular types of populations. In regards to what I can bring to Glendale, it's just that. It's everything that I've been doing I carry with me. It's something that I carry close to me and something that I'm very proud of, personally and professionally. When we talk about working with disproportionately impacted students, it's really hard for me to separate that out from my personal life because it's so personal to me. So I hope as we look forward to working with Glendale, we can look at what the disproportionately impacted students are here at the college, look at the data, but most importantly, also get out and talk to the students as well 'Cause I think sometimes we get into the rooms and we think we know what students want, and we really need to talk to students to really figure out what they want as well and include that in our decision making.
Schools across the state are struggling with increasing or maintaining enrollment. Which approach would you take to address this problem? Increase efforts to recruit new students to GCC or develop more student support programs to retain existing students?
Sure. I think we do both, actually. I think that, and I get my ABs mixed up, I believe it's AB 288, where we are mandated to go form partnerships with K-12 and offer our classes to K-12 students to hopefully provide a bridge to come into the college after they graduate and hopefully give them a head start while they're still in high school. So I think that's important. I think also what's important as well in that same vein is also making a commitment to be in the high schools. I've been in institutions and I've seen institutions where when economic times are good, we're all for being in the high school, and then when economic times are bad, we kind of pull back. And then we have to go back and reestablish that relationship again. So how do we, I think the goal is to develop a relationship that's going to be consistent and where we will have our presence there regardless of where the money lies in any given budget cycle. So in terms of recruiting students, so I'm reading a book now. It's called Persuasion. And kind of the crux of the book in Persuasion is the word persuasion is, if we liken it to what we're doing here at the colleges, is that the students have heard our radio ads, have seen our commercials, have gotten the mailers at home in their mail, and they come to campus and they buy in and they enroll in the college and they do the financial aid process. But the persuasion part of it, has everyone been to the movies? I'm just asking with Netflix and Cody, and there's no need to go to the movies anymore. But I say that to say that at the movies, before the movie comes on, there's this video clip that comes on, and it's a roller coaster, and there's popcorn popping and M&Ms flying and people smiling and drinking Coke and all that stuff, right? That's the persuasion. That's the movies telling you should probably go get that before the movie starts, even though you just ate 3 Big Macs, right? But the same here at the colleges as well. When we get the students here, how do we keep them here? Students of student government have already, in some cases, have already bought in to the college life and the college environment. So how do we get those other students that haven't necessarily bought in or are just here going to classes and maybe 1 D or F away from not coming back to school? And that's the persuasion. What are we offering those students outside of the typical support services, DSPS, EOPS, TRIO? What else can we do for them to give them that extra nugget to stay here at the college? And I think that's where the challenge lies. And I also think that when we're talking about retaining students, it takes work to retain students. We just can't assume that they're going to come back the next semester, right? We may have to work with them to tell them what's next. Or if you finish this class, it will set you up for this major. If you finish this class, it will set you up from this major. Or maybe even sitting down and creating some stackable majors or meta majors. So along their way, they're getting the small wins along the way. Because I think that sometimes what students need to receive are those small wins until they get the big win. So that's my thoughts in terms of recruiting students, retaining students, connecting them to services as well. And I think if we look at it from a purely business standpoint, which I know is taboo in education, if we look at it from a purely business standpoint, it is always better to retain your customers than continuously go out there and get new ones. Obviously, you want to go out and get new customers, but the ones you You want to keep those customers happy as well until you can graduate them and get them transferred, or get them, get their A degree or whatever their stated goal may be. So again, I think it's work, and it's going to take collaboration from all facets of the college. It's going to take work from the students. It's going to take work from student services. It's going to take work from instruction, and obviously it's also going to take work from administrative services, because we always need money to make these efforts work.
A recent resolution passed by acclamation at the statewide Academic Senate Spring Plenary began with this whereas. Career development and college preparation non-credit instruction serves as an integral part of current and future student success efforts by providing pathways to college credit programs that lead to completion of degree and certificate programs in transfer and career and technical education programs for students who are unprepared or underprepared for college. How do you plan to champion our non-credit programs as integral components of all current and future student success efforts, and to ensure our non-credit programs' inclusion in the initial release of statewide initiatives?
Sure. Thank you. I believe the non-credit program has an important place at the college, especially for students who are returning and just wanting to get their feet wet and just wanting to see what it's like to be at a college without the risk of damaging the transcript or the GPA. From what I experienced in the past, non-credit courses is that vehicle to remediate, to get students up to college level or just there in math or English. Non-credit courses are those courses that we can offer in the community to draw the students to the campus who wouldn't ordinarily come to the campus. And it also serves as outreach for the college as well, to reach individuals who we wouldn't ordinarily be able to reach. For example, parents. I'm working on the effort now with the high school in Los Angeles, where we're working really closely with the students, and the parents have a lot of questions. So they formed this parent meeting. And I told the assistant principal, I said, well, I'm going to sell them on college. While I have them captured, I'm going to sell them on college. So that's another avenue that we could attract a different population that we ordinarily wouldn't attract. Also, with non-credit programs, I think it's going to become essential as we move forward to looking at AB 705 and multiple measures. When the colleges, if the college, or as the college moves towards looking at what those multiple measures are in terms of assessing students or placing students in math and English, there will be those students who assess higher than what they think they are or where they think they should be. And I think that's also a great place for non-credit courses, is to help the students get that extra assistance that they need in those courses should they enroll in those courses. We had a similar problem at West LA, where we were one of the first colleges as a part of the Common Assessment Initiative, and we went through multiple measures about a year and a half ago, and students began to place, with acupuncture began to place at one level, but with multiple measures began to place 2 levels higher. So when the students saw it first, they were like, oh, wow, that's great. But then when they got in the class, they were like, oh, no, I want to go to another class. But obviously there was no mechanism for that to happen. So that I think non-credit courses in that instance also plays an important role. And then lastly, as it relates to career and technical education programs, I think non-credit courses are easy ways where the college can set up programs and certificates to offer particular non-certificate degrees, maybe legal studies or paralegal or whatever the case may be. And it allows the college to tailor a specific program to a specific industry as needed. As we're out building relationships with the community, we know that some companies have a population of workers that want to go to college, but can't necessarily go to college because they have other obligations like children at home when they get off of work, so on and so forth. So it allows us as well to go to those different industries and organizations to set up programs for those individuals as well. as well. And lastly, as we talk about inclusion of initial release of statewide initiatives, we know that the strong workforce is happening, which non-credit should play a strong role in strong workforce. And then also, I think when we look at the integrated planning process, that piece in the integrated planning process, the basic skills initiative and those basic skills dollars also play a huge role in the non-credit programs in terms of providing some tutoring for students or supplemental instruction for students. So I think as a college, as it relates to non-credit, we should look at it as a whole and not just its own program over here to the right. Because with all of those programs, again, there still are students at the college. That means they can touch any service that they feel that they need. They can touch any academic department that they feel that they need, and of course, they're going to touch, the business office in some cases to pay their fees. So, again, I think it's a collaborative effort when we're talking about non-credit, and just not one area of the college should be responsible for building that program.
All right, the next question, how have you worked to address food scarcity and/or homelessness for students?
Sure. So we do know that food insecurity and housing insecurity is prominent. And I believe there's a huge article in the LA Times that just came out in regards to homelessness in LA County. I can speak for what we have done at West LA College in setting up a food pantry and ensuring that there are items there, non-perishable items there for students to grab as needed without having to worry about paying for it or replacing it. What we've done specifically at the college is we developed what we call a West 211 app, mobile application that's downloadable by Apple and Android. And in that mobile application, it has a bunch of resources for food banks, housing, veterans, DACA, domestic violence, and there's a couple more that I'm forgetting. But because what we found is that typically when students need these services, they're not when we're open. They're maybe late at night or just when they're leaving campus. So giving them a tool that they can use at any time that they need to use that tool, meaning connecting them directly through the app to the phone on the other end, we found that to be more effective. We've just been doing it for a little bit over 7 or 8 months, but are continuously adding resources to the application, taking resources out because we know phone numbers change, continuously checking to make sure organizations are still open for business per se. So that's what we've done, and what I've been involved in regards to food scarcity and the homelessness of students.
Glendale Community College's governance structure is built upon participation from students, classified staff, faculty, and administrators. What has been your experience working with community college governance?
Sure. A lot of experience working with community college governance. As I mentioned briefly, served as interim vice president of student services at Coastline Community College and at West LA College. And I obviously attended all of the shared governance meetings, college council, enrollment management, president's cabinet, which isn't typically shared governance, active in academic senate, curriculum committee. All of those committees where all of the constituents come to the table. I think is extremely important for administrators to be involved in the governance process and be visible in the governance process, because it shows all the constituents that you have bought in, that you're engaged, that you're not necessarily there to make the decision, but offer a different, maybe a different opinion or a different approach. So my experience with governance is vast. As I mentioned, or maybe I didn't mention, this is probably going on my 15th year in community college administration. So I've seen a lot. I've been through a lot. I've been where budgets are good. I've been where budgets are very terrible. But through all of that, I think it's the collaboration that happens with all the constituents to make the college move. Because we know that if one constituent isn't on board, then nobody's on board. Well, I should say nobody's on board, but nothing moves forward, or moves forward a little bit slowly than we hope for. So, so again, I believe participation from all constituents is critically important, because we can't assume that one particular group has all the answers. They may have a part of the answer, but not the complete answer. So that's where input is very needed.
In order to offer the best support for GCC students, how would you go about integrating our instructional and student services so that they do not operate as separate silos?
Sure, I believe that that begins with a strong partnership with the vice presidents. I think that's where the model starts. If the vice presidents are getting along and being collaborative, cohesiveness, obviously that's going to filter down to the departments and the divisions as well. I believe that when we talked about integrated planning earlier, when I first was told that we have to do this integrated plan, and it was due right away, as things are typically due right away from the chancellor's office, I kind of moaned and groaned a little bit. But throughout the process, I began to appreciate the process, because what it did is it brought everyone from student services to the table. It brought everyone from instruction to the table. It brought faculty to the table. It brought students to the table. And we began to look at the budgets and the activities of the budget a little bit more transparently, so everyone had a broader knowledge of what each function was. So again, it's important for the vice presidents to have a strong relationship and be on the same page. Not necessarily saying that we will always agree, because that's impossible to always agree. But I think it's important to respectfully disagree when there are disagreements. I also believe that when we build services in student services, we should build services with instruction in mind. And I think sometimes when instruction builds services or builds programs, they should build with student services in mind as well. Obviously, I've been in situations where instruction has built a program and there was no communication with student services, and we had to deploy in student services people to a particular location to help students fill out applications, get through the financial aid process, and assessment and orientation, which causes strain in services. But I think if there were a bit more collaboration in that process, we would have worked it out, right? So I think, again, as I'll call myself the chief advocate for student services, it's important, again, for us to work collaboratively with instruction and to have a really meaningful relationship with the vice president of instruction and the vice president of administrative services as well, because that's the only way we're going to get things done and get things done the right way.
What is the most effective way to implement new ideas and programs into a college environment that has long-standing and deeply embedded traditions?
Well, I think the first way to implement programs and new ideas is that you have to go to the faculty and staff and solicit feedback of the ideas, and sometimes the feedback won't be as positive as other times, but it's important to solicit that feedback. I think there's a saying, and that saying is, if you want to know what's important to an individual, an organization, or a company, look where the money is spent. And at times when we're talking about bringing on programs and helping disproportionately impact the students, those efforts never get appropriately documented. And what I mean by documented, I mean documented in the student equity plan or the integrated plan, in the master plan, the student services plan, those plans that we use as a guide to how we're going to move the institution forward. So I think it's very important that we follow that approach and ensure that whatever the goal is that we're really serious about the goal and get after the goal, and not just say we want to do something, but actually go out and do it after we say we're going to do it, but document that we're going to do it as well. Understanding long and deep-rooted traditions. Glendale's been around since 1926. I get it and I understand it. But one thing I mentioned to a friend the other day is the only thing that doesn't change is the institution per se. And what I mean by that is things are rapidly changing around the institution almost daily. For example, I emailed my son, who's a sophomore at Sacramento State University, maybe 3 months ago. And about 2 weeks later, I finally caught up to him. I said, hey, I emailed you a document. He said, Dad, I don't email. Text me, right? And here I am, a self-proclaimed nerd that didn't get that, right? So the way we communicate with students will have to change eventually. The way we deliver instruction will have to change eventually to meet the needs of the population that we serve. And again, I understand deeply rooted traditions, and I know it's difficult to change sometimes, but I think with that change, I think the other side of that change, well, there's two sides of change. There's the fear side because you don't know what the end result of the change will be, but then there's the collaboration side of change where while you're going through the process of change, you're informing everyone at the college of what's happening. Then things work a little bit easier. We may not like it, but at least we have input on the decision and on the change. And I think that's really what matters.
How familiar are you with guided pathways? And what's the role of student services in helping to create a campus culture that effectively institutes guided pathways?
Sure. Very familiar with guided pathways. I believe guided pathways should not only be implemented at the college, I believe guided pathways should be implemented at the K-12 level. I believe guided pathways should be implemented in industry, depending on where the path ends. So obviously, in K-12, we want the path to continue to the college or continue to a university. At the college, we want the path to end in degree completion or AA completion or transfer. And then in industry, we want the path to end in gainful and meaningful employment for the student. Student services role is very pivotal in guided pathways because along the path, and I'm envisioning that flyer with the path, along the path are points where students are going to need assistance, and it varies upon what student it is. Some students need assistance daily, some students need assistance semesterally, some students never need assistance. I was one of the students in college where I just kind of went through and it worked, right? But that's not everyone else's experience. So the role we play in regards to counseling, the role that we play in regards to EOPS and providing book vouchers, the role we play in ensuring that students' financial aids are processed on time so they can get their books and be in the class, the role we play in providing additional supports for veterans and making sure that we have mental health counselors there to work with students when they're in crisis, if they're in crisis, the role we play in the food pantry and in helping students, to have some nourishment, because if students are hungry, they're not going to learn. So student services played a very, very pivotal role in guided pathways, and again, I think it has to be a collaboration with instruction and administrative services, or it's just not going to work, quite frankly, and that's my strong opinion. It will not work if there's not collaboration, because there are times where students need assistance, and we need to know when that is. Sometimes it happens in the class when students need assistance, and sometimes it happens right after class or at home. Or sometimes students disclose certain things to faculty members, and faculty members aren't trained to handle that type of information, and they need to give it to someone else to handle. So again, it's going to be, it has to be a collaborative effort if guided pathways is going to work. So I think that's the role student services plays in guided pathways.
All right. And the final question today is, do you have anything you would like to add?
Well, I have so much I could say. Well, first, I'll say, again, I want to reiterate my thanks for allowing me to come and spend just a short time with you. Because of today, I did not sleep last night or the night before or the night before. So maybe I can get a little sleep tonight, but no, I really look forward, if the opportunity presents itself, to come and do good work for the college, do good work for the students, do good work for the people I work with. And I say that wholeheartedly, work with, because I don't sign any checks, right? So no one works for me. We work together, in my opinion. I would also just add that I'm trying to decide if I should say this or not. I will say this. So I mentioned earlier that I grew up with foster children in the home, right? And at any given time, there was maybe 6 of us in the house at any given time. And there was 2 unwritten rules that you had to know as the kids in the house. And those rules were, get up early enough to eat fruit rings, not Fruit Loops, but fruit rings, before someone comes downstairs and puts that powdery white substance in there and water and shakes it up, and then it becomes like extra super transparent low-fat milk, right? So get there before that happens. The other unwritten rule is you never want to be the last one to take a bath, because you're the one that has to clean the bathtub, right? So, and why I say that, not to be funny or in jest or anything, I say it because it's those experiences that I have growing up, good and bad and indifferent, is what makes me who I am today. And it's those experiences of seeing how my mom cared for essentially strangers is how I carry myself today. So in closing, I hope that I'm able to come to Glendale, do good work for the students, do good work for the faculty, staff, and administrators, and do good work for the students, and just be available and transparent and be cutting edge. I mean, that's kind of my blessing and the curse, is that I'm cutting edge. And things I think about, I'm like 3 years out. And for example, this Cranium Cafe thing, doing that in 2007. But we want to be cutting edge. We want to do things that are going to push the envelope in regards to services. And we want to meet the students where they are. And obviously it's not email. So, just looking forward to, hopefully coming and working with the college in that manner, and just doing the best job I can for the students, and just meeting people where they are at that particular point in their life, and just doing the best I can. So other than that, thank you for your time, and I appreciate your time.